मे श्री गुरुवे नमः। श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा गदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकम्। हे कृष्णा कर्ण सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवसादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So 18th chapter, which is called as the perfection of renunciation, moksha sannyasa yoga. The perfection of renunciation, the renunciation also needs perfection. Interesting, right? Let's pay our obeisances to Shri Shri Radha Govinda for making us go through this journey and for their causeless mercy. This is what we did yesterday about chapter 17, the Arjuna divisions of faith. Arjuna's inquiry about unauthorized worship. Then Krishna answers, three modes determine everything. Three modes determine one's faith and worship also. Then there are foods in the modes of nature, sacrifice, austerity, charity, and then everything has to be done with something called Om Tat Sat. So today is summary. Today is just a summary. Actually, Bhagavad Gita is over in the first 17 chapter, but this chapter is just a summary of everything else. He's going to summarize everything that he said. Remember, second chapter was a summary, but this chapter is a conclusive summary. That chapter was an introductory summary. So freedom from bondage through karma yoga, which we studied in the first third of Bhagavad Gita, 5 factors of action, and 3 modes control everything else. There are more things which 3 modes control. And then purification through Varnashram Dharma, Brahman platform, confidential knowledge, which was in the middle third, pure bhakti, which was also in the middle third, and then the conclusion, which is given by Sanjaya. Okay, Arjuna Uvacha. Again, Arjuna asked the question to Krishna in the beginning of the chapter. Sannyasya mahabaho tattvam ichhami veditam. Tyagayasya cha hrishikesha prithak keshi anisudhana. Arjuna said, "O mighty Ambon, I wish to understand the purpose of renunciation. Tyaga, another renounced order of life, sannyasa. O killer of Keshi, demon master of senses." So Arjuna is asking difference between purpose of renunciation, tyaga, and renounced order of life. Renunciation could be like I do an activity but I renounce the fruit. And renounce order of life means that I only live to serve Krishna. I don't do any activity which does not include Krishna. Renunciation is like giving up the fruit. Renounce order is living only, doing everything, even activities of daily living for Krishna's sake. Okay, but he's asking the difference. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha. Kamyanam karmanam nyasam sannyasam kavayo viduhu sarva karma phalatyagam prahos tyagam vichakshanaha. The Supreme Lord said, to give up the results of all activities is called renunciation by the wise. And that state is called renounced order of life by great learned men. Now, Krishna is going to say that what could be given and what could not be given. What should be given up and what should not be given up. So is all the activities should be given up, or only the some activities should be given up? You know, some renunciants say that everything should be given up. One should just retire on the top of a Himalayan mountain or forest and then sit down there and just meditate. Let's see what Krishna says. Some learned men declare that all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up, but there are yet other sages who maintain that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. So, sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. This is the other class of transcendentalists. One class of transcendentalists says all kinds of fruitive activities. Let's see what Krishna says. Yagna dana tapa karma nya na tyagyam karyam evat tat. Yagnodanam tapaschaiva pavanani manishinam. Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up, but should be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great soul. So, sacrifice, charity, and penance should not be given up, is the verdict of Krishna. Anything that leads to Krishna consciousness is never fruitive, even though it may appear like that somebody is engaged in the fruitive activity, but it is not fruitive because it is done for Krishna's service. Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up, but should be performed. Okay, so should be performed. The word should is a heavy word. Should be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. So even the Mahatma needs purification to go to Krishna. It's not easy. Remember, we studied in 7th chapter, Mahatmanas tu mam partha, devim prakriti mashritaha, bhajante ananya manaso. So even the great soul is still in need of the purification. That's why they just go on doing all these activities of sacrifice, charity, and penance. This is one such example. Does anyone know what's happening here? If you do, then you can write to me in the chat box. What is happening here? What part of the Srimad Bhagavatam is depicted in this photograph, in this painting? Anybody? Or any of my admins? Do you know what's happening here? What's happening?
Daksha's yagna is was stopped because he lost his head. He got a goat's head and he could finish his yagna sacrifice.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. Yes, yes. So Daksha was the son of Brahma. Brahma had two sons, Lord Shiva and Daksha. Daksha's daughter was Mother Sati. So Brahma told Daksha marry Mother Sati to Lord Shiva. Daksha was envious of Lord Shiva because Lord Shiva is topmost yogi, topmost renunciant. Okay, so he marries off Sati to him, but because of the request of his father Brahma, but he was envious because of his elevation in Krishna consciousness. So, in one such sacrificial arena, he insulted Lord Shiva, and that did not sit well with Mother Sati. But Lord Shiva did not retaliate. Lord Shiva is a dhira. So he just left the arena. He left the arena not because he was insulted. He left the arena to prevent Daksha from further offending a Vaishnava. Okay, it's not like if somebody is insulting me, then I'm just gonna pack up and go because I don't want to be there. It was not like that. Lord Shiva left because he did not want Daksha to go on with his offensive language. So he left. But later on, so Daksha did not speak to Lord Shiva for many years. But Lord Shiva was fixed in his determination. He was not having any hard feelings. But they did not just speak. So one time Daksha had arranged another sacrifice arena. Another sacrifice. Another sacrifice, but he did not invite Lord Shiva there. Neither did he invite his own daughter Sati. And Sati was his favorite daughter. So, but Mother Sati saw that the denizens of heavenly planets are going. She saw that the women are dressed very nicely and they're chit chatting and they're passing by the planet of Lord Shiva. So she heard them talking that they're going to sacrifice at Daksha's place. So she told Lord Shiva that she wants to go too. Lord Shiva said, "But your father has not given us the invite. We should not go." But she said, "I want to go to my father's house. I don't need an invite to go to my father's house." Lord Shiva tried to persuade her, but she did not agree. So she wanted to go. She was pretty fixed on it. So Lord Shiva said, okay, then he arranged for her to go in a proper fashion as his wife. He did not just got mad at her. Uh, so she went, but in the arena, she saw that there was no place given for her husband, and she felt again insulted because the husband is insulted. That's the definition of a chaste woman. So she gave up her body by chanting the mantras in the middle of the arena. That news made Lord Shiva angry because not because his wife died, he was completely detached, because his a Vaishnavi, a devotee of Krishna, was insulted again. So there was a war. There was a little war, and then in the process, Daksha ordered his, I'm sorry, Lord Shiva ordered his accompaniants to behead Daksha. So Daksha was beheaded. His head was chopped off. And Brahma went to Lord Shiva and pacified Lord Shiva and chanted very nice prayers to Lord Shiva at that time and requested that please return Daksha's head. The Lord Shiva said, I will return his head, but his mentality is like a goat, so I'm going to give him a goat head. So Lord Shiva performed a head transplant and gave him a goat's head. So this is Daksha with a goat head. And in the purport, Prabhupada explains that medical science thinks that the intelligence is the function of the brain or memory is the function of the brain. But from this particular pastime, we understand that actually memory and intelligence is the function of the soul, because despite of getting a goat head, Daksha was still quite aware what happened, and he was quite well versed and performing his apologized to Lord Shiva and said prayers to him and then invited him and performed the sacrifice. When we read this, we were all astonished that, whoa, so long we have been thinking that brain is the thing that has everything. But here you go from Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the soul sitting in the heart. This is in fourth canto Srimad Bhagavatam. Etani apis. So what did we see so far? Arjuna asked Krishna renunciation and renounce order of life. What is the difference? Krishna explains renunciation is giving up the fruits, and renounced order of life is a state of life where all the activity is given for Krishna, done for Krishna, fruits for Krishna. So then he's further explaining that what should be given up and what should not be given up. So the conclusion is charity, acts of charity, sacrifice, and penance are never to be given up because they purify even the great souls. एतानि अपि तु कर्माणि संगम त्यक्त्वा फलानि च कर्तव्यन्ति मे पार्थ निश्चितं मतमुत्तमम्. All these activities should be performed without any expectation of result. Again, the word should is there. They should be performed as a matter of duty, or son of Pritha. That is my final opinion. So, when in doubt whether I should do something or not, just pause and think, is this activity going to put any value, add any value to my Krishna consciousness? If the answer is yes, then go ahead. Okay, then go ahead, because Krishna is giving his opinion, final opinion, that should be done as a matter of duty, of sacrifice, penance, and charity. But there are some people who will not do because of the modes of nature. So, verse 7, 8, 9. There are prescribed duties. The person in the mode of ignorance will not do the prescribed duty because of illusion. Person in the mode of passion will not do the prescribed duty because of the difficulties in executing the devotee, in the executing the duty. Person in the mode of goodness will do the prescribed duty because it is a duty. Does not Is not under illusion, is not worried about the difficulties, and is not fearful. Okay, now Krishna further builds up that how what are the factors which are involved in executing Krishna consciousness, or executing any work. Actually, this is Sankhya now, heavy duty Sankhya. O mighty Aunt Arjuna, learn from me of the 5 factors which bring about the accomplishment of all action. These are declared in Sankhya philosophy to be: number 1, place of action; number 2, the performer; number 3, senses; number 4, endeavor; number 5, ultimately the super soul. Okay, so these are the 5 factors which bring about the accomplishment of any action. Any action which we are doing, it's not just that I am the doer. Oh, I had so much desire, I worked so hard, I did it. No, there are 5 things. One is a place of action. For example, this is a marketplace. We need a place where we can set up a market. Okay, number 1. Number 2, performer. We need somebody who's a seller, somebody who's a buyer. Number 3, senses. If a people don't have ears to hear, or hands to touch, or nose to smell, or eyes to evaluate, it's not going to be a proper place. Endeavor. It takes a lot of endeavor to set up a business in the marketplace, and it also takes an endeavor on behalf of the buyer to earn money and go and spend it. But ultimately, Krishna, the super soul, if Krishna does not sanction, then this place is not going to be there. So is every action that we do every day, minute to minute. in our lives. Okay, so let's say that somebody wants to build a very big temple. So they need a place of land. So that's place. They need performer, we need architect, we need civil engineer, we need so many workers, we need finance officer, so many people are needed. And they must have all the senses. If they can't talk to each other, if they can't look at the land, if they can't hear each other, we need senses, then it's not going to be the success endeavor. It needs a lot of time and effort to plan, to execute the plan, to bring stuff, and ultimately it's Krishna. If Krishna does not sanction, then nothing will happen, which is the most important element of doing any action. Therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the five factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. Okay, only a very, very illusioned and falsely proud person will think that I am the only one doing everything, or I am the Lord of everything I survey. That particular person uh, is not very intelligent. That's what Krishna is saying, and cannot see the things as they are. But we are reading Bhagavad Gita. We should give credit to everyone who they uh, for what they do. Now, Krishna is going to talk about the knowledge. Knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower are the three factors which motivate action. Motivation of action is always done in the subtle level first. Okay, that's in the mind or intelligence, that knowledge. Let's say I give example, right? Let's say somebody wants to travel from one part of the city to another part of the city, another part of the city, sorry. So they should have knowledge that where do they have to go and why do they have to go. Object of knowledge, what is it that I have to accomplish which is not there where I am right now? Why am I going there at all? So object of knowledge, and the knower, that me as a soul. So all this has to be done in the mind first, that I have to go there tomorrow. I'm gonna drive down there with my car. My car should have the gas, and I have to go there because I need to deliver this very important document, for example, to this particular person at this particular address, and then I have to head back. So these person is not boom moved at all from their chair, but the motivation of the action is already done in the mind level. But when the mind is when the action is done, then the senses, the work, and the doer comprise the threefold basis of action. Person who's thinking should have senses, and then the work to be accomplished, and then they have themselves have to get it done. So one of our students made this slide. So he made a basketball basketball thing. The person who's playing, they should have a knowledge that what are they doing. Okay, and then the object of knowledge, that there is this, or the work, for example, we can say that I have to throw this ball. First, before they come in the court, they should have some knowledge what is going to happen there, and they have to work with this ball. And then, who is the one who's going to be doing it? The person, knower. Both are important. If I don't have working hands, working legs, then just a subtle level action is not complete in itself. Okay, so these are in the mode of self assessment. We don't have to tell anyone about our results, but you can rate yourself 3, 2, 1. Which mode do you think you fall in? Mode of goodness, passion, ignorance. Three kinds of knowledge are based on modes of material nature. Krishna's gonna, so far in 17th chapter, we studied food, austerity, sacrifice, penance, worship, charity in the three modes, right? And now Krishna is going to talk about more things which fall in the modes of nature. First thing is knowledge. That knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all existences, undivided and divided, is known as knowledge in the mode of goodness. Okay, I would like someone to explain that after I finish reading this. So you can actually raise your hand when we finish reading this slide. What does this mean? 18.20. That knowledge by which a different type of living entity is seen to be dwelling in different bodies is knowledge in the mode of passion. And that knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work as the all in all, without knowledge of the truth, and which is very meager, is said to be in the mode of darkness. Yes, that knowledge by which undivided spiritual nature is seen in all existences, undivided in the divided, is the knowledge in the mode of goodness. Yes, what does this mean? What does this mean? One second. Yes, Guru Prasad Prabhu. What does this mean?
Rama, Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yes.
18,
Hare Krishna.
1822 verse says that if you
1820, Prabhu. I'm asking 20. 20.
okay, okay. Sorry. The knowledge of which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all existences. So, undivided in the divided. So, one has a undivided spiritual nature which has to be divided in the knowledge of goodness. Right?
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Chitra Mataji. Yes, Chitra Mataji. Chitra Ramesh Mataji. All right, I'm gonna keep moving. Smita Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yes,
Can
Hare
you hear
Krishna.
me?
Yes, yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah. The 1820 says the super soul is everywhere in the plant, in animal, and everywhere. So that when one soul can realize the soul in the other things, even maybe human being, animal, plant, that is the goodness. That is what I felt.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. Very nice. Thank you so much. Okay, so everyone, so what it means is that one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all existences. So, undivided spiritual nature means constitutionally one is able to see soul in every living entity's heart, not just divide each other by the bodily designation. That knowledge where we can see the soul in everyone's heart, which is part and parcel of Krishna, which is united in that sense that because it is part and parcel of Krishna. For example, if a father has 10 children, they're all different children, they're different persons, but they are all united with each other with the fact that by the fact that they all belong to one father. Like that, we may have a different personality, but constitutionally we belong to one Krishna. So one who can see this, the spiritual nature, the soul and the super soul in the heart of everything that exists around them, every single thing, that knowledge is in the mode of goodness. But a person who sees and differentiate each other by the skin or by the bodily designation, that knowledge in the mode of passion. And the knowledge in ignorance is very, 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 very obnoxious because they don't see anything beyond themselves. They are only concerned at how I can satisfy my own senses. So one is attached to one kind of work as all in all without knowledge of the truth. Let's say somebody is very attached to intoxication. They don't see anyone. They actually don't see themselves. That's why they don't see anyone. We see others as we see ourselves. Okay. All right, so three kinds of actions on the modes of nature. As for actions, that action in accordance with duty, which is performed without attachment, without love or hate. One who has renounced fruitive results is called action in the mode of goodness. Okay, so as a matter of the duty, so they understand, person in the mode of goodness understands that what is my adhikar, what is my boundary or line of action, what can I think and what I should not think. So we can only think about the duty which is performed without attachment, without love or hate by one who has renounced fruitive results. It's called action in the mode of goodness. But action performed with great effort by one seeking to gratify his desires and which is enacted from a false ego is called action in the mode of passion. And that action performed in ignorance and delusion without consideration of future bondage or consequences, which inflicts injury and is impractical, is said to be action in the mode of ignorance. Mode of passion is like what Earth is in. Earth, so we work very hard, build up very, very big festivals and entrepreneurships and industries and whatnot, because we're fully convinced that if I don't do this, then I will die. You see, I'm fully convinced. So enacted from a sense of false ego. But person in the mode of ignorance does not see anything, does not anything, nothing. They don't hesitate in causing any injury to themselves or to others. Okay, so we can see all that around us. Three kind of workers. The worker who is free from all material attachments and false ego. All material attachments and false ego, who is enthusiastic and resolute, and who is indifferent to success or failure, is a worker in the mode of goodness. This can only happen if one is really working for Krishna. Because Krishna, activity for Krishna has an ability to take away this attachment and false ego. Any other activity has an ability to bind us more and more, more and more, more and more. So if somebody, let's say that there is a person now preaching, for example, preaching is a function of a sannyasi. A sannyasi is not worried that whether they're going to, what is going to happen, whether they're going to, where are they going to live, whether they're going to have any problems in traveling or not. The sannyasi just goes, resolute and indifferent to success or failure, because they know that their function is to keep moving, keep moving. But that worker who is attached to fruits of his labor and who passionately wants to enjoy them, who is greedy, envious, and impure, and moved by happiness and distress, is a worker in mode of passion. Sorry. So, very attached to the fruits of labor and very passionately want to enjoy that. Why is somebody involved in very big projects to earn a lot of money? Why? What is the motivation? What is driving them? The desire to enjoy, basically. If they are not in Krishna consciousness, and then they're not in mode of ignorance, because mode of ignorance means inactivity. Then they're in the mode of passion, because they want to enjoy. They want to enjoy the fame, enjoy the assets that they'll be able to get out of this money, which is all a result of mode of passion. That worker who is always engaged in work against the injunctions of the scripture, who is materialistic, obstinate, cheating, and expert in insulting others, who is lazy, always morose, and procrastinating, is a worker in the mode of ignorance. So, for example, setting up a casino. That particular activity is completely out of the scriptures. Nowhere it is said. And if somebody visits that place, then there's always going to be this insult on each other, cheating on each other. And why are they playing this game? Because they want to earn so much money, because they don't want to work. It's lazy, morose, procrastinating, delaying. Tomorrow I will do better. Tomorrow I will do better. But that tomorrow never comes, is a work in the mode of ignorance. Okay, now three kinds of intelligence are also based on the modes of nature. O son of Pritha, that understanding by which one knows what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, what is to be feared and what is not to be feared, what is binding and what is liberating, that understanding is established in the mode of goodness. Person will not have a confusion. They don't have to ask their neighbor, what should I do? It's not that we don't ask. I should not say that, but it's not that I don't really have to. There is no, not I, but person in the mode of goodness does not uh, have a confusion that should I go to a gambling place or should I go to the temple of Krishna? There is no confusion in their head.